Welcome to Mission to Inspire, where we share life experiences in our careers, personal lives, society, culture, religion, finance, family, and much more. Meet your host, Shola Ajibade, as she takes you on a ride to fuel your inspiration.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mission to Inspire. My name is Shola and I'm your host on Mission to Inspire today. We've got two lovely guests all the way from United States of America, and they are here to talk about or discuss how to create a graphic novel with a social message. So meet Tem Blessed and Michael LaRiccia. You're welcome onto the show.
Peace. Yeah, peace, love, and justice. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Tem Blessed. I am the hip-hop artist turned author of Planeta Blu, this graphic novel that we're so excited to introduce to the world because, as you mentioned, it has a strong social message, but also in the spirit of all comics, you know, there's some superpowers, there's some talking animals, there's some great heroes and sheroes in it. And, you know, just excited to be here. And I'll let Mike introduce himself too.
Sure. How do I follow that introduction? I'm Mike LaRiccia. I am the artist and designer of the book. I'm a comic book artist, an illustrator, animator, graphic designer, a dad, a little bit of a musician, not as much as Tim, but I've been lucky to be able to work on all kinds of things in my creative career, including children's book, tabletop games, animated commercials, working for a lot of nonprofits and things like that. And recently working for the parent guardian organization at my kid's school, which is taking up a lot of my time. So, but yeah, I do all kinds of things. I'm really thankful to be on the show, and I'm always thankful that I've been able to work with Tim on this amazing book. So.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming on our show today. Both of you have got a lot in common.
Yeah, we do. It's so interesting. That's actually how we met, is because a friend of mine and Mike's neighbor introduced us. And we live in the same town. And you know, she was just like, hey, there's this amazing artist I think you should meet, because she knew that I was working on this book. And, you know, after looking at Mike's amazing, impressive website, I was like, yes, I think this guy is the right guy to, or has, you know, the abilities, the artistic, you know, beauty and flow and line, all of that was important. And then we met, and, you know, what was great was this synergy around, you know, being parents, being someone who is into like hip hop and music. And we both went to UMass Amherst in Massachusetts. And so all of that made it so it was very easy to work with Mike. As a musician, I've worked with band members, and I always prided myself in trying to find not only talented people, but just good people that you could vibe with, people that have the same principles and really are looking at making the world a better place, which is really important for me. You know, this isn't about just making money, never been about just making money. Although we make a living doing this thing, it's really about adding to the culture, right? Whether it's hip hop culture, whether it's the comic book culture / graphic novel culture, you know, just art, sharing a message of peace, love, and justice. That to me has always been kind of where I'm driven to. And Michael shared a lot of that, if not all of those elements. And so it was really cool to build with him on this project.
I'll add too, what's really interesting when someone shares with you their art in general. So when Tim shared with me the manuscript for the book, you know, that process in itself is really telling of who a person is. And so it's very clear based on the values you see in the storytelling and sort of the details and sort of the decisions made, that, you know, I mean, I could tell like this is someone that's on the same page as me, no pun intended. But so even that first meeting, we both remember just being like, yeah, like we totally like the same stuff. We're, you know, we feel the same way about larger concepts in the world and stuff like that. So so it was really serendipitous that we even got connected in that capacity. So it's an easy work relationship and a great friendship. So
okay, great. So we're gonna go into this or that question, and I'll see how you guys will answer this question now. It has to be the same because you're single.
Oh man.
All right, let's see.
Let's go.
Okay, so the first question: rap or rock?
Rap all day. Yeah.
Rap all day. Okay.
I mean, these are pretty finite answers. There's no middle ground here, is there?
Okay.
So if you got to be swayed one way or the other, it's
all right.
I am hip hop, so yeah, rap all day.
Rap all day. Okay. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Yeah, Spider-Man lives there, and now Spider-Man became black. Oh, forget about it.
Okay.
Let's go. But yeah,
Okay.
Spider-Man, Wolverine, Hulk.
Yeah. Netflix or Hulu? Do you like Netflix?
I'm gonna say Netflix because I've been watching a lot of Netflix stuff lately. but I don't have a real allegiance, Shola. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. They just have a lot of original programming that I really like, especially the animation stuff seems to be really cool that's coming out of Netflix. So I love it.
Okay, drawing or writing?
Drawing.
I go with drawing.
Yeah. Even though I'm a writer, I also draw, you know, not as good as Mike, but I draw, and that's how I get a lot of my ideas down. I got to put them down on paper, and so yeah, drawing. I'll go drawing any day.
I'll take that because you both are into graphics anyway. So okay. Right. Now this question you're gonna answer together.
Okay.
You have to answer this one together. So now pizza or burger? 1, 2, 3.
Burger.
Oh,
Mike, you missed. Oh, that was tough.
Pizza?
Yeah. The Italian guy.
Yeah, I had to go with pizza.
Okay.
I thought about it for a second because I don't eat a lot of burgers, but I'll eat a lot of pizza. So I'm going with pizza. What did you say, Tem? I didn't hear you.
I said burgers, man. I'm gonna go burgers. I'm going burgers with it.
You think you know?
So you differ in that. Okay.
We do differ in that.
That's the first one. Okay.
You can put a burger on a pizza. Too.
Okay.
You can't do the other way around.
Okay, Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Okay,
Lord of the Rings.
I like Harry Potter. I gotta go.
Yeah,
okay,
last one. All right.
Last one, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Yikes. Oh, we're gonna differ on this, Mike. I'm gonna go Star Trek. I'm gonna go Star. Well, look, I got the
I can see
behind me.
Yeah.
And I always say, you know, there's this conversation that happens in social justice work. It's like, hey, if we win, the future looks like Star Trek.
Right. I've heard that too, yeah.
It looks like Star Wars, you know what I mean? And we gotta fight the Empire, which we're doing right now.
Interesting. Thank you, guys. So I feel we know you a little bit better now. We know where you guys differ a little bit.
I know.
You guys unite a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so the topic that we'll be discussing today is how to create a graphic novel with a social message. So what inspired you guys to create Planet Blu?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm glad you asked that question because it started with just storytelling to my children, just telling the bedtime stories. You know, as they grew older, you know, the just funny, quirky, you know, kid stories became a little bit different. And this story kind of stuck with me even after the nighttime, where I found myself talking about it. As an artist, a musician, you can tell when something is landing with the audience, right? And so my children really were excited by the story of Planeta Blu, which was just these ideas. And when I would kind of talk to them about it, like, I'm thinking about actually writing this down, like, who do you think should be in the council? They also were excited. And so for me, it was, clear that a lot of the characters had to be of color, had to be Black characters, because especially when I started writing the story, which goes, plus 5 years, 5 years ago plus, that there wasn't enough representation or young people that or superheroes that look like myself. So you got to think pre-Black Panther movie, pre-Moana even, Disney movie. All these things made it so I was like, man, I want my kids to see themselves in these characters, in these heroes, in these sheroes. And at that time, there really wasn't a lot of, Black male leads. And so my wife is Latina, she's Boricua. And, I had heard the story about Grito de Lares, which was the only time Puerto Rico, who's a United States colony, people call it territory, but it's a colony. How the first time that they were free, and that stuck with me, and that became the name of our lead character. And then we have Tume, who's Cape Verdean like myself. I'm from West Africa. I was born in Guinea-Bissau, grew up to Cape Verdean parents in the United States. We immigrated when I was 3 years old. And so it was important for my sons to see that character. And then also as a youth advocate and a youth worker, I knew a lot of young people who were named Angel, but they were never angels. They were, kind-hearted people, but they always had like a mischievous kind of edge to them. And so, I really knew these characters, including Tyler, who was the white kid transplant from Indiana, which was the birthplace of the KKK. And so I remember having these conversations with my friend in high school, who was a white kid, and really talking about these issues, because they were ever present. Even though we are friends, we would share our dreams and also what we hoped for the world to be like. And so I thought it was really important to have these characters at the core of the story. And like I tell people in my music, as a conscious hip hop artist, I cannot make music that is just pop and fluff, right? Even if I try to, even if they said, hey, we'll give you $1 million, I might try. I don't think I can. For me, hip hop has to have a message. It has to be uplifting. It has to be empowering. And so this story, as I was telling it, even though it's a lot of action, even though it deals with, animals talking and fiction and fantasy, there is some realism there, especially around environmental justice, especially around animal justice, racial justice, because this is the world we live in. And so I wanted to bring in these magical elements, these super fantastic Afrofuturistic elements in this reality base. And I think that to me is what inspired me from jump, is to have something that had all these elements in it. So that was it. That was the driving seed.
That's interesting. I'm sure a lot of kids from our background, for example, would really be interested in that book. So I'm interested myself. I like to see when it's out. It's out on Tuesday the 21st, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, November 21st, available everywhere. So you can buy it wherever you buy your comic books, wherever, if you shop online, at Amazon or Target or Walmart or Barnes & Noble, like everywhere, which we're excited about because we have this iconic distributor and publisher, Dark Horse Comics, who's backing us up and presenting this. So we're excited about that.
Wow. Great stuff. Well done, guys. So going from that, your book is about tackling environmental and social issues. Why did you go into that?
Yeah. I mean, as a poet, I take it a responsibility to say what's happening now, right, in my community is always very important. And I grew up in New Bedford, Massachusetts, which dealt with whaling. So it was the richest city in the world at a time, because that's where they found oil first, right? Before they found it on the ground, they found it in Wales. And so it's really sad that, this amazing animal, the sperm whale, had to be hunted and taken of its life force. Honestly, it's blubber melted down to make oil, kerosene, and such. And so it's a form of kerosene for lamps and such, that oil. And so it was always at the core. That's where my family immigrated to, is New Bedford, Massachusetts. And so as I was growing up, going to the beach and knowing that, like, hey, you can't swim over here because it's polluted, because there were these factories that were dumping all the toxins into the bay until they cleaned it up. That was an issue. The fact that people died because of these brown fields that exist in New Bedford, toxic waste that they put houses on, that they put schools on. All these things were coming up as I was coming up. And then, like most people, around 2007-ish was when I became aware of the inconvenient truth, right? That's become so political, or just the reality that, hey, we are facing with a climate crisis, and the way that we are currently consuming, the way that we're farming, the way that we are overfishing, all these things that humans are impacting our environment is something that's been around for ages, but now seem to be coming to a head. And so when I got hip to this awareness, I was like, any art that I put out has to have an aspect of that. It just feels like I would be doing the reader, the people who wants to get entertained a disservice, because this is our reality. And so I want to always put things in a reality, but also give a message of hope, because when you look at some of these situations, it seems pretty dire, but I look at my history, I look at how African people have been enslaved in this country and around the world. I look at how we survived that. My family survived colonialization. Like, we got our independence from the Portuguese, who were oppressors. Like, we have that blood in us too, and so, like, how do you balance those? How do you live past, some of this reality that, we've been victimized, but now we're not only victims, we're survivors. And so how do we survive in the future to come? And so that message had to be included and for me anyway, at least in this debut message, and this debut story. We could have gone with superheroes with suits, we could have talked about aliens and all this other stuff, which is all exciting things, but for me it's really exciting that to defend Mother Earth, to really tap into what would the animals, if we could talk to animals, what would they say, is really an idea that really captivated me. And I gotta say, like most artists, like this idea, once I tapped in, once I locked in, it really wrote itself. Obviously I put in my input, but I felt like it's a story that needed to be told. And I feel good being part of a messenger for the trees, for the breeze, for the wind, for the seas, for the ocean. That's what I feel like. And so, hey, here we go. Let's do it. Let's get it.
But it's interesting though, because you are making us aware of our environment and how to, keep Mother Nature clean the way it should be, by telling a story.
Yeah.
Which is really good. It's not, what we've been hearing is on the news, okay, environmental awareness, this, that, but now it's in a story.
Yeah.
You need to be subtle. We're reading it, and where it's, we're digesting it, and we might then start practicing it because we can see the effect and the benefits in that story. So it's
really... and in no way, I want to say, in no way is it preachy, because at the heart of it is just the story, right? And here's just the setting. It's a setting that's like, oh my goodness, what are we doing to our world? And the reality that some of these young people weren't even aware of, like many of us, right? Like, we don't know what we don't know oftentimes, but once we know, I feel like you have a responsibility, even a line, I always say this about all the great rappers or all the great artists that are out there. Like, I feel like you have a responsibility, even to say one thing, even one line, you know what I mean, in the story, and it's interesting. And as a quick side note, I was even listening to Michael Jackson, right? And he had that song called Why, why? Tell him that it's human nature. Why do we do it that way? And so even like, these subtle things that seem like pop music, you can always put something in there just to speak on a different level. And I think all the great artists, which is what we're trying to be, the great authors, the great filmmakers, they always go a layer deeper. When you think of The Matrix, right? It's not just an action movie, right? It goes layers deeper. And the key is to not beat people over the head, right? With the message. It's like, hey, here's the entertainment, here's the action, here's the, these the love and the compassion, but also know that it's grounded in these real elements.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, how did you collaborate on this story, Mike? How did you collaborate?
Well, like Tem was saying, so he found me through a mutual acquaintance. It was my neighbor and his friend. So his friend was living right next to me. And, I think people always kind of know, like, oh, I have a friend who was an artist, that kind of thing. So my neighbor was like, hey, I have this friend who wrote a book. He'd like to connect with you. And, both of us were kind of resistant to being like, okay, well, I'll just do it because this is my neighbor, and vice versa, because you feel like everybody's got a book. Everybody's in art, everybody kind of says there's something. So when we met, he came over to the house, and we had exchanged emails, but we hit it off like immediately. And to sort of piggyback on the previous questions is that as an artist, doing work with purpose is what really inspires me to just keep creating. I feel like art can be used to distract people or to inspire them, and enlighten, right? So this is an instance where this is a piece of art where I'm going to be, it was a long book. This was not a short project. So thinking about something I'm going to, I'm like, well, this is going to take me a while. And this was during COVID too. You got to understand, it was right before the pandemic really hit. So at that time, I didn't know I was going to be home all day with my kids every day. And so, when you think about, do I want to take on something this big? It's got to be something that you really believe in, something that you think has, it's going to reach people, and it's going to stay with people. And so it was clear from reading it that that's what was going on, and there was real content here, and that at the forefront, Tem really believed in this project. Like, I could tell this wasn't something he was going to lose energy on, because that's another thing too you get worried about. I've worked with people where they have these huge projects, and it's just like, I'm done, I'm ready to move on. This is taking up too much of my life. I wasn't prepared for the other end of this project and like actually getting it out into the world. So all those things factor into it. And again, this was something that I believed in just based on the work itself, meeting Tem. And, you gamble a little bit too, because it's such a drawn out project. You don't know where things are going to be at the end of it. And so I was willing to do that. And it just kept continuing to be a good experience. And what we did was, before this was published, the book that's coming out on Tuesday, we did a crowdfunded version of this a couple of years back. And that was what really sort of helped us get to the next step for a publisher, showing, hey, we have an audience for this. We're able to bring this to completion and follow through with everything. And the whole experience has been really fulfilling and enriching. And I've been still enjoying the whole process. So,
so the challenges, the benefits, can you take us through that?
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many. I think most importantly, it's become cliche, which is good because it's in our consciousness, this idea that it's a journey, right? Life is a journey, not a destination. And so being that this is my first time putting out a book, but having done 6 albums in the past that you could find on, and any streaming, Apple Music, Spotify. When I was younger, the challenge was I wanted to get on stage, right? Like stage was where like the magic happened for me, right? It was cool also getting to, the recording booth and recording in the studio, but all those process to get there was very painful. Let me say it that way, because, who wants to promote your show? Who wants to, figure out what you're going to wear, right? Like, I just want to have the clothes there. Who wants to actually write like writing the lyrics is fun, but to actually like, come up with the concept, all that stuff takes time. And so when you think of like just writing this book, first of all, committing to it was a lot, just to say like, hey, I'm gonna write this, but I'm also gonna finish it. But not only am I gonna finish it, which is a lot of artists get in is a challenge, is you finish it, but now you have to put it out there to the world, because I know too many people who their whole book, their whole album is just in their computer and it just lives there, or just a few people hear it or see it. And so having that strategy to put it out there is challenging. As Mike mentioned, we did a whole crowdfunding piece, and just some words of wisdom, like set aside that time to prepare. I know that if we had just launched a campaign, just like, hey, I think I'm going to launch a campaign and see if people are going to, support it. It doesn't work like that. You really have to reach out to folks, make sure your family got your back, your friends got your back, people that will have your back. They need to be informed, right? No one is in your head knowing what's happening. And so communication is so key. That networking is so key. And then believe in funding it. You know what I mean? Like, although I had investors, I took out a loan. I took a loan for this. I invested my own money into it because we have to always support the artists. Like Mike gave me a great price. However, he's valuable. Like, he's quality work, right? So you have to pay the man quality money, right? And so all that is to say that you have to believe in this thing wholeheartedly, because if you don't believe in it, who is? Because the challenge is going to come. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, I gotta go to this Comic-Con, and how am I going to get there? Am I going to, rent the hotel, and I got to get up early, and all these things that if your why am I doing this isn't right, then you're gonna really struggle more, or you're gonna feel like, oh, why did I think I should do this book? Well, I know why I should do this book. I know exactly why, and I'm happy. So the journey, all those challenges, even when I caught COVID, as Mike mentioned, we were in the process of doing this, and we had a deadline, right? We had talked to the folks. We reached our goal, right? We successfully hit our goal, and now we're like, we got to put out this book for folks. And then I caught COVID, and this is pre the vaccine, right? So this is like when, like, you think like, and a lot of people did get really hurt. Luckily, it wasn't as bad for me, but it was enough where it knocked me out for like 2 weeks, right? And so that was a challenge. And then the pipeline, the actually trying to get the book. So we knew we had done it ahead of time. Mike finished the book. We reviewed it, had an editor go through it. It was all set. We sent it out to get printed, and they're like, yeah, we're going to have it on this day. And then that deadline became like 2 weeks. 2 weeks became
the supply chain. Is that what they said? Like,
that's what I meant. Yeah.
Get it off of freight in California.
Yeah, it's so challenging. And what are you going to do? All you got to do is communicate with folks and let them know this is what's happening. And luckily, we all were going through it, right? We all were going through the same challenges, whether we are just trying to buy, the next PS5 or whatever it is. But for us, we're trying to get these books. And so we work through it, though. I think that's what's important. And, you get this prize at the end, right? You get this like amazing book that smells so good. You know what I'm saying?
Can we see the book?
Yes. Yeah. Check it out, y'all. This is the brand spanking new book. Look at
Very colorful. And I love the color. Blue, green. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a very vibrant color scheme here. But
Yeah.
if I could add too about challenges, though, it's, depending on where you are in your career, the challenges are going to be different. And I know for this particular project, like for me, the challenge to finish it, it was there, but I mean, I knew I could do it. The hardest thing for me, and maybe for you, Tim, is just like this portion of it is like, well, we have the chance now to distribute this like internationally. How do we get the word out to people? How do we, because we believe in it, we know that people who've bought it love it. So like the challenge is like you could literally be doing something every minute of the day to promote this, and you have to figure out, well, I have to budget my time, I have to prioritize what's important, but I also have that sort of stress of like, I could be doing more, and we're also new at this level of promotion. And so that, I think for most people, that's a huge challenge, because it's just like buying a house. Like the first time you do it, you're kind of winging it in the beginning, and you're making mistakes, or you're asking for advice, you're troubleshooting, you're throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And there's this, we want this to continue on. So there's that stress of like, we really got to do everything we can to promote and get the word out about it. And so that, to me, that's the biggest challenge right now, because I feel good about everything else. What is like the trick, because a lot of people say, it's really, there's a lot of luck involved too, where you get it in the right place, the right person sees it, or something like that. And so you're always sort of thinking and keeping your eyes open for opportunities, and it's hard to relax on that part of it.
Yeah, no chill. But I think it's important also to, give it your best, right? That at the end of the day, that's all that we ask, that's asked of us, I believe, is like, just try your best, give it your best, and don't kill yourself doing it, right? We're no good to anyone if we're sick, or if we're, worse, like out of here, like in the grave, what I mean? Like,
we're miserable.
Doing that. Like, yeah, he left us a great book, but he's dead now. You know what I mean? Like that's for future generations to, we can't work yourself to death. So that work-life balance is real. And so I hear you, Mike. That's challenging, because there's also always one other place we could reach out to. There's always, one other tour date or venue that we could add on. But we're doing this to promote more life, not more work. Our work is we don't live to work or work to live, whatever the term is. But at the end of the day, it's about life. It's about promoting life and being in flow and fluidity with it.
Yeah. Actually, that brings me to asking you this question. So, how do you then balance entertainment and education in your graphic novel?
Yeah. Oh man, it's definitely a balancing act, because you don't want to put all this information, especially unnecessary information, or this isn't a textbook, right? It's not what I wanted to put out. I wanted to put out some Afrofuturistic sci-fi fantasy, with some superheroes, but not, with capes. It's a different type of superhero that draws its story from animals. And so for me, it dealt with a lot of research. It dealt with a lot of writing about what I knew about, which is young people, which is culture, hip hop culture specifically, but also the interaction between groups of people that I know a lot about: Cape Verdean, West African people, specifically Cape Verdean people, and Puerto Rican people, and white folks, and and then also thinking about these animals in a way that is informative, but also it's almost like really lightly touching. So a lot of our characters have names of historical figures. So Tume, his last name is Cabral, off of our revolutionary leader out of Cape Verde, Milka Cabral, and then you have, like I said, Angel and Laris. But there's, Douglas is named after Frederick Douglass, and then there's, Harriet, who's the bald eagle, which is the symbol of America. But I wanted, Harriet's name to be, it's based off of Harriet Tubman, and this need for freedom. But that's just planted there, right? And in the back we do have a glossary for the teachers, for the young people to know, once again, that there's layers to this, there's levels to this, there's an intention around it, and there's a spirit about it. But never is it over. It should, I think of it like edutainment, right? It's educational and entertainment, and it has to have a nice balance. And I think of, people like KRS-One in hip hop, who I thought did it great. And for those that don't know, KRS-One was like the Drake of our time, you know what I mean? And knowledge is, KRS stands for knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone, right? So knowledge is at the key of this. And so at the end of the day, it has to be food for thought. That's the hip hop that I like to consume, even though, like, yeah, every once in a while, just give me some ignorant stuff. Or same thing with movies, just give me some, action with some violence in it just for the sake of it. But there's only so much I can consume of that before I'm like, ugh, okay, I'm good with that. It's like candy, right? Like, there's only so much candy you can eat. At some point, you got to get to the fruits, you got to get to the yams and the vegetables, and if you eat meat, like the meat, but organic meat, you know what I mean? Like, you want to get to that. And so for me, it was, yeah, you're getting hungry, right? It's important to have that balance. So it's it's a nice balanced meal, if you will.
Yeah. So who did the graphics?
Oh, that's me.
Oh, you did? Okay. So with your graphics, how do you hope to engage and inspire readers with your message through that?
Yeah, so with this story particular, because I work in a different styles depending on what the project is. So there's I'm finishing up a children's book for somebody. That's a totally different stylistic choice there, depending on the audience. So with something like Planeta Blu, where it's in the medium of comics, and we sort of project onto comics that they're cartoons, and they're not, there's fantasy and those kinds of things, but because of the content of the story and sort of the seriousness of these themes, when I was looking at it, I was thinking, well, we're going to have talking animals in this book, all right? So we have to be careful that doesn't become like a distraction to what we're actually talking about here, because, it's very easy to go into a very cute direction with that kind of stuff. So I sort of pitched this idea of like, well, why don't I try making the animals sort of, realistic? Like they these are not cute, characterized, stylistic looking animals, so that you sort of let the viewer buy into this reality that we're creating. Okay, so you see a great white shark, and the viewer says, well, I can see by the way that has been portrayed that there's a threat there. That's a real. This is not like a Finding Nemo shark. This is like there's some
there's teeth there.
Yeah, and so sort of grounding it in and I'm using the term realism very loosely because it's still very stylized. It's still sort of, there's a lot of line work in there, which is something that I enjoy, but I feel like a lot of line work lends itself to more energy in the artwork, and it gives me some flexibility in how I can sort of manipulate environments so that maybe these characters are going through a space and it abstracts a little bit with the line work. And so that, when they're underwater, that becomes very useful, so that, there's almost, I like to, when I can, sort of sneak in some sort of surreal elements to my imagery, because I feel like what that does is it opens up the viewer into thinking, well, now I'm in a story where I don't know where this might take me visually. I'm not, it's not that it makes them uncomfortable, but it opens their minds up to that. Okay, so anything could kind of happen in this story, and that I kind of liken it to grindhouse horror movies, which I know is a really weird thing, but it's like when you watch a movie like that, you're like, well, all bets are off. Anything's going to happen in this movie, right? Going into it that, you might see and hear things that you were not expecting, you know. So it's sort of in that vein where it's like the style gives me the flexibility to really express the emotional aspects of the book. And I feel like it worked pretty well, and it doesn't diminish how important the message is either.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the original question was. I got on like this train and I just kept going.
Yeah, no, it was great, Mike. And I think, you know, what was great about your style, Mike, is also the use of the color palette, you know, because, you know, some of these themes are dark, right? We even talk about like the middle passage because they're underwater. And I know that was something that it was important to touch upon and for the young people to reflect upon. And Mike just illustrated it in such a way, and his use of color just makes it so you're not caught up in just this black and white reality, you know, because the world is in color. And so, you know, there's diverse colors and you know, really profound colors, and it shifts throughout the story. You know, Mike really went through different moods depending on what was happening, the action or the you know, whether there was like a love sequence that was happening. You know, it felt right, like it really brought you into that vibe, into that zone, which is great for me. Also seeing my words come to life. So Mike just really,
and also it's also inspired by the traditional comics of like the 60s, where they had a limited color palette that they could use because of the printing techniques at those times. So what you get is these really sometimes contrasty but very powerful images where color can be not used literally, but to really express moments in the story, you know. And I've always loved that because I've definitely seen work that like really works when it's realistically colored, but you know, for something like this, I think it was appropriate to open up the possibilities with both line, color, text, and everything.
Yeah. So both of you sing? Do you rap, both of you?
I rap. Yeah, I'm a hip hop artist. Yeah, and I'm an MC. Yeah.
Okay.
I will admit that I have rapped, but I will never. But I have never performed, or probably will ever perform.
We gotta get in a cipher, Mike. I keep forgetting that you have rapped and freestyled in the past.
That was another life. That was another life.
Okay, great. Can you rap for us then?
Oh
yeah.
Man.
Oh, him or me?
Come on.
I think Tim.
Listen,
Tim,
I got nothing to lose, to speak my own truth, to walk in my own shoes. I'm writing my own news. I got nothing to prove. I reap what I sow. I teach what I know. Beyond survival, got everything to bring. Breaking those chains, using my brain to sacrifice the pain. I got moves to make, faith lost to break. No time to debate. New life to create. True and living. I'm building precision in God's likeness. I'm disciplined, a driven musician that's sipping nitrous. Hey, yo, I gotta like this righteous consciousness that burns bright as Kid Icarus. You a Greek myth, I'm a physicist, sick of this. Most of these rappers are cigarettes, they're corny, cancerous, and full of ish. I spit space shift into galactic alchemist, and now bruh. Lick shot.
Thank you.
Welcome, you're welcome.
Mike, we're waiting for you.
Oh my God.
Put you on the spot, Mike. See, you want to say you rap.
I wrote that.
Yes, you did. You did. So, how do you incorporate your hip hop elements into this graphic book?
Yeah. Well, hip hop, you know, is unapologetic. That's what I love about hip hop, is the fact that, you know, a lot of times we speak truth to power, and our main villain in this is an oil tycoon billionaire turned evil world conqueror. And so a lot of times when we out there talking to the public and we mention that, you know, that this person's, you know, a billionaire, millionaire, you know, from a class where a lot of people like, yeah, we can see that, you know, there's some people out here in our reality that are impacting our lives without us giving them the authority to. We were talking about this the other day, Mike, right? When we were talking about how, people are putting up satellites above us, and I'm just like, man, like, I didn't sign up. I didn't give you permission to, put up satellite. I didn't give you permission to drill over there or frack over there or do these different environmental things that are going to impact me. And so hip hop always comes at it from, the voice of the voiceless. Oftentimes it's, for those that don't know, it started out in South Bronx, which at the time was one of the poorest, and still right now, arguably one of the poorest communities, boroughs, cities, towns in the world. And so it came from came from nothing, right? They have these young people, specifically DJ Kool Herc, who came from Jamaica, who saw something that was happening in Jamaica and it started creating it here. And then, that was like the spark to inspire, Grand Wizard Theodore and Grandmaster Flash and, and so many names, whether it's Public Enemy, Fight the Power. I feel like what's great about this book is there is an element of telling the truth in a way that almost like comedy, right? It can be received. Comics do that in a way where, and hip hop does that in a way where it's like, it almost softens a little bit of the blow because it's music, right? And Bob Marley said, one good thing about music is when it hits, you feel no pain, right? And so ideally, when people see the story, they know it's fantasy, but there is some of that element, and similar to hip hop, here's this world that we created. It's an exaggerated situation. I grew up in the hood, right? I grew up in the projects of Massachusetts, right? South of Boston. At the same time, even though there was drugs and violence outside my home, in my home, there was a lot of love, right? Mom was there. My father was there. My family was there guiding me to something better. And so there's always this consciousness element that says like, hey, even though the stuff is real, even though the stuff is hard, even though there's a lot of sacrifice being made, we will get through this, and we can do it in a way that there's joy, even in the way that we can celebrate it. And so I think hip hop, I already know hip hop is always straddling those two realities. Is like, hey, we're here, we can change things, and we can do it in a way that's very artistic and creative.
Right. Great. Thank you for that. The future of Planet Blue. What is it? What are your plans?
Yeah. What do you think, Mike?
Well, we're hoping to, Tem's got a couple more books in him with this story, so it's a series. And we're ready to go on that, and that's an active exercise that we're doing. And our ambitions with this project do not have a limit. I mean, we can see this being translated into movies, TV, whatever the best venue is to really get the story to the most people and to represent it the right way. So that's what we're thinking about. And Tem's actually working on an audio version of the thing right now too, which is in process too. So you're only limited by your imagination, I think, and especially in this era where you see, I pay attention to a lot of these properties that start as just a book, and now everybody's seeing it on a show, and that's not an unreachable goal in this era, which is great. And that's something that, it's always sort of in front of us, and we try to be realistic about the timeline for those things, but that's definitely something that this story has a lot to give, and it has, it's going to stay around. It's something that will resonate with people. It's not one of these books that you just put down and that's it and you move on. I think it has a lot of heart to it, and it speaks to a lot of people, and I think it's when you say you do an original graphic novel, there's something very original about this book. And when I first read it, and I said, I've never seen things like this in a story. And I'd love to be the one that creates it, draws it, So,
so if you're gonna translate it into a movie in future, yeah, make sure you hunt me down.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll keep you on file.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's been part of the dream all along, right? Is to have and create opportunities for people of color, for Black folks, for the kids from our neighborhood, right? People who don't always get the opportunity. I think it's so important, for me, like one of the things, I tell my sons, I'm like, hey, we're not doing this to become millionaires, billionaires. That's not the point of it, right? It's to tell the story that needed to be told. And also when it becomes a movie, right, to give the young people of New Bedford, which is where it takes place, the first crack at this, right? To say, come on out. It's going to be an open call for the youth of New Bedford and, others, but to come out and to give it your best shot. We're going to hire whoever's the best person. If it ends up being Zendaya, who's, doing the lead, that would be great, but it could also be, Jaylee, what I mean? Who's the young woman who, is just has this dream of being an actor. And we're like, yeah, let's go. Cause you are the best one for the job. But I think it's always important for accessibility. And I think oftentimes people don't fight for that. I think people get to a place where they're just happy to be like, oh, it's going to be a movie, right? That's what's always at the forefront for me, is like, no, that this is important, that there is an open call for the youth of New Bedford first and foremost, and then we can go everywhere with it, and include everyone else. But first and foremost, give the talented youth of New Bedford an opportunity for this, because that's when I believe, our dream becomes other people's dreams, and that dream grows, and it becomes, a world that is a dream and not a nightmare, which, right now it's very hard to escape the nightmare of the world unless you are actively working the opposite side of that, and not necessarily just attacking the nightmare, but actually building a dream that more people can say, like, I'm not interested in war. I rather work towards peace. Yeah, I know you guys want to push hate because that makes you a lot of money, but I rather actually work on love, and compassion and empathy. That seems to actually be what motivates me, and we know it motivates most people, but some people have been able to really capitalize on suffering and distress. And for us, no, we want to show that another world is possible, another future is possible, and we know that fiction is part of that. That's how we imagine it. We know that comics have always inspired. It has inspired me, has inspired Mike, and millions, billions of people throughout history to see the story, even though we know like it's fiction, but there's something that's real about this fictional story that inspires us to be like, yes, I could be super heroic and superhuman and extraordinary with it.
Interesting stuff. Interesting. It's good to actually create opportunities for people within a local community, so, and around the world, and I guess that's what you guys are trying to do with this novel, with this graphic story, which is really cool. Thank you. On our show, any inspirational advice for our viewers, our listeners out there?
Yeah, I'll always say, just commit to it. Oftentimes you can be indecisive. You can always change your mind, but just kind of picture that future that you want, commit to it, make that choice, and just work towards it. It's hard work, but if you're working towards something that at the end is going to be good for yourself, your family, your loved ones, the environment, the world, then just commit to it and just go all out, man. We need more dreamers. We need more people building this and dreaming really big, because if not, I don't know how else we're going to make it. So thank you for all the creatives out there, and whoever's listening to this, to just do a little bit more, go a little harder, and commit to it, and know that like you can do it. I believe it. I know it. We're an example of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add, I'm always reluctant to give advice to anybody, because everybody's circumstance is different. But one thing I do feel comfortable saying is I always encourage people to attempt to live a life with radical honesty with yourself and with other people. And that can be applied to what we're doing right now, is being honest with yourself and being patient with the process and knowing that you're giving everything you can, or if you're not giving all you can. But I think if you can center yourself with that concept, it will bring good things to you.
Thank you so much for coming on our show today. We really appreciate you guys. If anyone wants to contact you, how can they?
They can call Tim.
Yeah, planetablu.com. planetablu.com. So it's planet with an A and then blue, BLU, without the E, right? So planetablu.com. You can reach out to us. We're also on social media, and we're active on there and also approachable on there. We will respond. So if you looking for any little advice, because we know, like, it takes a village, it takes a community, and so that's how you can reach us and pick up the book, Planeta Blu, Rise of Agoo, November 21st. If we're successful, is if people can attain it and grab it. So grab it, put it in your hands and enjoy it, even if it's a gift for someone else. We'd love for you all to be part of this journey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And all that information will be in the description and in the show notes anyway. So guys, hey, let's go out there and buy this book. I'm sure it's going to bless us.
Yes, it will.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night or goodbye from myself, Mike, and Tim. Okay then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on Mission to Inspire. Subscribe if you have not already done so. Like, comment, leave a message. Let's stay connected. Let's jointly inspire the world.